Hey yo, how you doing, man? This is something I figured I'd play around with for a little bit. I've not done any real voiceover stuff like this, so when I do voiceover audio on gameplay, I'm usually playing the game at the same time. So I figure what I do is give this voiceover audio thing a try. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be talking about some random stuff that I find funny that set people off one way or another, like this one dude getting mad at me for saying his comparison to enjoying the remake more so than original IP. Like, the comparison he had was a terrible one. He was upset more people were more excited about an original IP in the new Indiana Jones um, Xbox exclusive title than the, what is it, Knights of the Old Republic remake that's coming out for the PS5. He was very upset with this, and for me, I couldn't help but laugh because I was trying to explain to him that, you know, you can be excited for a remake, and just because more people are more excited for the original IP doesn't take anything away from the remake. We just already know what to expect because it's just, I mean, look at the remakes we have. Final Fantasy VII is possibly the greatest remake we have due to the fact that this game's upgrades are way more notable than that of like Resident Evil 2, of Resident Evil 3. I'm not taking anything away from Resident Evil 2. It's a great game. But when I look at a game like Final Fantasy VII Remake, honestly, it's more impressive. Because I've played Final Fantasy VII. I remember playing Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 1. You see what I'm saying? So when I look at how far visually it has come since the PlayStation 1, it's noticeable. But everyone talks about the Resident Evil 2 remake being possibly the greatest one because it's Resident Evil. And while 2's remake is great, that game saw life on the PS1, and then it went to the PS2. Or no, that game went to the GameCube. I'm sorry, it went to the GameCube, right? So when that went to the GameCube, what happened? It got a little bit better to look at. It wasn't like looking at the PlayStation 1 version of the game. So to me, it's less impressive. We just don't have that little somewhere in the middle catch of improvements to, you know, Final Fantasy VII as much as you see that with Resident Evil. Okay? But he was very upset about the fact that I was saying more people being into the idea of Indiana Jones just is common sense, you know. And I was like, you compare. My thing was he was comparing the idea that Resident Evil 2 remake is better than any original idea game. I'm like, dude, that's completely wrong. Okay, so I just thought that was a funny situation because I wasn't even saying that the game was bad. I was just pointing out the fact that more people ought to be into the Indiana Jones game because it's an original IP. I'm in no way disrespecting Knights of the Old Republic, okay? But he was trying to say because it was Game of the Year in 2003 that it should be Game of the Year in 2022 or some shit. Like, that's not how it works, man. If you have an original game come out, the original game is gonna get more attention than the remake. That's just how it works. Now, I'm not saying the sales numbers are going to reflect that. Don't ever think I'm saying that. Absolutely not. It's just people are going to show more interest physically to the new thing than the remake because they already know if they're going to buy the remake just off the name alone. It didn't take much to sell Resident Evil 2 remake. There's what, a good high 80-something% of gamers out there who played the original Resident Evil 2 on PlayStation 1, who then jumped to the Dreamcast and played the Dreamcast version, then jumped to the GameCube and played the GameCube version of the same game, and even played the Nintendo 64 copy of Resident Evil 2. That's right, I know my Resident Evil 2s. So you can't sit there and say, oh, how is it you already knew with the Resident Evil 2 versus like a brand new IP? Because I've already invested enough time into that fucking game alone. Like, you ain't gotta do shit except say this game is coming and let me see how pretty it looks, because honestly that's all you have to offer in current gen gaming any fucking way, is how pretty the fucker looks. Because 90% of the fucking conversation is just that. But it looks good, right? It's pretty. It can be a beautiful game. Okay, first of all, who in the fuck ever said anything in 720 was ugly? Who the fuck ever thought 900p was ugly? Who really gave a shit when it became 1080p? Who gives a fuck about 4K if there's no substance? It can be visually appealing. Nobody's arguing that. Games look better now. Notice I'm using gameplay of Mega Man X right now, drawn from the Super Nintendo Mini that I have, okay? I'm using that kind of gameplay to talk about this. Look at the graphics, man. This is what we was dealing with in the early 90s. Of course games are gonna look better, but the substance here that holds this game together has nothing to do with the fucking graphics. It has everything to do with the overall game. See what I'm saying? Is the game fun? Is it got replay value? Is it got fucking, I don't know, some way to actually capture your attention? But everybody's so enthralled now with this pretty video shit. I gotta have pretty this, pretty that. But then we get it and it's shit. It looks good, but it's shit. That's just what it is. Ain't nothing wrong with a remake. Don't get me wrong. Ain't nothing wrong with the remake. A remake is good. However, you already know by the title of the remake if you're gonna be getting it or if you're gonna be skipping it. But when it comes to original IPs, you're always gonna pay them more attention because you've never experienced them before. Until next time.